Welcome to the audiobook, The Heartless Alpha. Written by S.V. Smith. Narrated by Sadie Pepperell. Chapter 1. Lily POV. Hurry up, slave! Goddess! You have nothing to work with anyway. Did you even bathe? I rolled my eyes, for what felt like the millionth time. Why Luna decided her spoiled, stuck-up daughter, who also hated my guts, would be the perfect person to help me get ready for my wedding was beyond me, although helping was a far reach. So far, she had pulled me out of bed by my hair, handled me into my creaky chair in front of my sorry excuse for a vanity, and screamed at me to get ready. Since then, she had done nothing but dick around on her phone and occasionally insult me. "Yes, Evelyn," I clipped out. She snorted in response and went back to her phone. I was nearly ready. My thick red hair was pulled up into a French twist. My veil tucked into it nicely. I had no makeup to speak of, so I had no choice but to go natural. It didn't bother me much. My skin was flawless in terms of acne. I would have liked something to try and conceal how sallow my cheeks were, and the bags under my eyes, though. I was extremely pale, due to a lack of food and nutrition, which made me look sickly. My full lips were dry and peeling slightly. I hadn't had a drink in over 24 hours, and how I wish I could say it was from nerves. Sadly, it wasn't. I had a straight, proud nose, so I guess that was a plus. The only feature I really loved was my eyes. They were unbelievably green, like emeralds, but more. They almost shone with the depth of their colour. My gaze swept down to my dress. It was gorgeous. The only thing I had ever received from the Alpha in the 13 years I'd been at this pack. Alpha Theo and his Luna, Tina of the Snow Moon pack, had adopted me when I was 5 years old. I have no recollection of my life or family from before. Many times I had tried to remember, but it was black, fuzzy. Eventually, I'd stopped trying. My first memory was 13 years ago, entering Snow Moon's border and staggering around until I came across the pack house. Foolishly, I raided the kitchen as I had been starving, and the Luna had caught me red-handed. Terrified and alone, she had taken me in, though I quickly found out she was not a Luna of mercy, as I was made to clean, cook, and serve the pack with harsh punishments if I strayed or argued or talked back. Her daughter, Evelyn, was the same age as me, and just as cruel as her parents. Her main source of enjoyment was to torment me. Once, when we were 10, I had spilled a glass of orange juice on the floor. Evelyn had walked right up to me and dumped the remaining glass over her head, immediately screaming for her parents, claiming I had thrown a glass at her, and then dumped the juice on her when I missed. None of her friends had backed me up, and I spent 3 days in a cell in the basement with no food or water and merciless beatings from the Alpha and Luna both. I had no idea how I survived, and at the time, I wasn't overly happy that I did. Over the years, however, I'd simply learned to stay away from everyone as much as possible. When that wasn't possible, I just kept my eyes down and my mouth shut. The punishments happened less and less, but when they did happen, they were extreme. If Evelyn had a bad day at school, she would take it out on me. Sometimes her friends would join in, leaving me in whatever state when they were done. More often than not, I wished for death. Until I got to my wolf, Aya. It was thanks to her that I found my voice again. My will to fight back somewhat. She was strong, snarky, and my only friend. She was the only reason I'd managed to keep my sanity. I smiled to myself, remembering the night she finally came forward. Flashback. I was in the last room of the main floor, just finishing up mopping. Suddenly, a voice had me screaming and dropping the mop, splashing water everywhere. "Hey-o!" Who's there?" I asked nervously. I spun in a slow circle, looking for a sign of another person. Laughter. "No need to be so jumpy. I won't hurt you, Lily." I realised the voice was in my head. "You're my wolf." "Bingo!" Is that your name, Bingo?" I asked. Odd. "What?" "No, silly girl. My name is Aya, and it is so nice to finally be here with you. It's really nice to meet you too. I figured I trailed off helplessly. That you didn't have a wolf? I know. You do? She sighed. I've always been here, Lily. I know those assholes told you that you couldn't possibly have a wolf, and all the other bullshit they've put you through. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't here to help you. But I'm here now, and you'll always have me to watch your back. Fuck this pack, and fuck them for the hell they've put you through. I laughed, full of joy. I had a wolf. This was the best day of my life. Oh, Lily? Yes, Aya, I answered. Happy birthday. I grinned so much. I didn't even mind I had to remop the floor. End flashback. That was last month, my 18th birthday. I hadn't shifted yet, as wolves shift for the first time on the full moon, after their 18th birthday. I couldn't wait to see what Aya looked like. My reminiscing was interrupted by Evelyn's high-pitched voice. What the fuck are you smiling about? Aya snarled in my head. I shook my head but declined to answer. Evelyn narrowed her eyes at me and stood up, moving towards me. She stood behind me with her hands on her hips, cocking her head to the side. You know, slave, I think you could use a little colour in your cheeks, she smiled wickedly. I immediately sprang up and tried to dash to the door, but she was quick. Grabbing my arm, she spun me around and landed a vicious blow to my left cheek. While I was still stunned, she repeated the action to my right cheek. Tears sprang to my eyes to accompany the stinging on my face. Aya roared in my head, momentarily deafening me, while Evelyn laughed. I didn't hear the insult she threw at me. Holding my cheeks, I turned swiftly for the door, exiting the room with Evelyn hot on my heels. You'll be back, you know, she said. I know you think this marriage is your ticket out of here, but it's not. As soon as your groom realizes who my parents are marrying him off to, he'll throw you out faster than you can blink. I'll be surprised if he even goes through the ceremony, she hissed. Stepping in front of me, she grabbed my throat roughly. You will always be nothing but a slave. Evelyn released me, shoving me back a few feet. Without another glance, she marched down the hall and out of sight around the corner. I leaned against the wall, taking deep breaths. She's wrong. Don't listen to her, Lily. My wolf tried to soothe me. She's right, though. I've always been a slave. Who could possibly want me? Look at me. I am. You're stronger than you realize. You've been through so much, and you're still here, still standing. Even if this guy throws you out, we won't come back here. I blinked. You'd go rogue. I told you I'd always be here with you, even if we had to be a rogue. Tears welled up again, but this time from happiness. Wow, thank you. I love you, Aya. I love you too, Lily. Now, let's go get married. She cheered with mock enthusiasm. I laughed quietly. Straightening my dress and my hair, I began walking down the hallway. With each step, nerves began to pull in my stomach. See, the craziest thing about my situation was that I actually didn't know who I was marrying. This whole thing was arranged without my knowledge, at least up until last week. I'd been a server at the yearly Alpha's meeting, which was at Snowmoon this year. The next day, Alpha Theo and Luna Tina had dragged me into the Alpha's office and told me I was getting married. They never said to whom, and they never gave me the option to say no. All they said was they were getting more for my hand in marriage than I was worth, and they were glad to be finally getting rid of me. I couldn't say I was unhappy about the prospect of leaving this pack, but I was scared of marrying an unknown man. I couldn't fathom why anyone would want me, to be honest. I assumed it was someone from an alley pack who wanted a slave. The more I'd thought on this, the more I believed it true. After all, Alpha Theo could pick any random girl to replace me. Lost in my fears, I finally reached the grand double doors to the hall, where the ceremony was taking place. Voices buzzed from inside. I felt like vomiting, but also something else. My head began to swim, and I was suddenly too hot. My heart rate was picking up quickly, and I felt lightheaded. Was I about to pass out minutes before my wedding? Lily POV. As I took deep breaths, as being coached by my wolf, Alpha Theo snuck up beside me. I had been so focused on my breathing, I hadn't even heard him. He grabbed my arm roughly, pulling me to his side. I flinched. Stop fidgeting, he hissed. What are you doing? I asked. I felt so out of sorts. I didn't even stop to consider my words or the disrespectful tone in which I said them. Alpha Theo narrowed his eyes at me. The hand at his side twitched, like he wanted to strike me. Since you have no father here, it is my duty to walk you down the aisle and give you away. Don't misinterpret this, though. I take absolutely no pleasure in touching you. What? Why did it sound like he was insinuating something? You mean you take no pleasure in touching me when it's not violent? I deadpanned. Aya, who had been pacing in my head, stopped in her tracks. I could feel the shock coming from her. I was shocked too. I'd never spoken to Alpha like that before, with such confidence. Where the hell had that come from? The Alpha seemed more shocked than either of us, however. His face was comical. At least it was. Until his eyes turned black, and a low growl came from his teeth. Shit. Before Alpha Theo could hit me or worse, kill me on the spot, the doors in front of us began to open. He released his hold on my arm instantly, and I winced as the blood flow began again. He linked his arm with mine instead, turning me towards the hall. I had no maid of honor, no bridesmaids. Not that anyone would have agreed if I had asked. As we entered the hall, I was hit in the face with the most amazing scent. It was a mix of lavender and chocolate, with a hint of an almost musky, woodsy smell. It almost knocked me off my feet. It filled the hall, and I found myself looking around, searching for the source. Aya was practically jumping in my head, wanting to come out. Mate! Mate! She screamed. What? Where? I asked. I saw him then. My eyes zeroed in on the most amazingly breathtaking man I'd ever witnessed. He was taller than Alpha Theo, at least 6'7", a giant and all muscle. His tuxedo strained against his muscles in a way that had my mouth watering. I could see the hint of a tattoo peeking out front under the shirt collar on his neck. I was less than 5 feet away now, close enough to see his hair had a slight wave to it, and it was pitch black. My fingers itched to run through it. He had a chiseled jaw, with a 5 o'clock shadow, full lips under a straight, long nose, and his eyes. They gazed into mine and held me captive. They were a warm honey gold with flecks of brown. I had forgotten where I was, the reason, the time, the place. This is our mate, I asked Aya. I couldn't quite believe someone so... He was my mate. Yes! I could feel her connecting with our mate's wolf. She was purring with joy and happiness. A loud throat clearing sounded next to me, and I unwillingly cast my gaze away from my mate in annoyance. Alpha Theo was glaring at me, his arm still linked with mine. It was only then that I realized we'd come to a stop. The entire hall was buzzing with hushed whispers. Everyone was staring at me. I blushed slightly and looked down. Alpha Theo. His voice was deep, husky. It sent a shiver down my spine. I'll take her from here. My head shot up. Wait, I was marrying him? My mate? Chapter 2. Who do you think? He's the only one up here other than the old guy, snarked Aya. Truthfully, I hadn't even noticed anyone else. But she was right. Only the elder who was blessing the marriage stood at the altar with my mate. I glanced around him. Didn't he have groomsmen? Friends? Family? What are you waiting for? Go, hissed Alpha Theo. He released my arm with a not-too-subtle shove. A growl erupted from my mate's chest at the action, and I peeked up in time to see Alpha Theo's face go pale. He bowed his head in apology and went to take his seat next to his Luna. I spotted Evelyn seated next to her mother, but I didn't understand her expression. Truthfully, the second I realized whom I was marrying, I could only imagine how jealous Evelyn would be. I mean, this man was a god, but she looked smug. She had a wicked little smile on her face, laughter in her eyes. Her expression had anxiety pooling in my stomach. I jerked my attention back to the man in front of me. He was glaring at me now, annoyance clear on his face. I'd like to get started, if you're willing to pay attention now, he grumbled. Without waiting for an answer, he signaled to the elder to begin the ceremony.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to be here at Snow Moon today, to bless the union of these two children on the moon goddess. Shall we?
He looked at my mate. He nodded once. The elder looked at me with a soft smile, which I returned.
Do you, Lily...
He stumbled for a second, and I blushed a deep red. Traditionally, he would use my full name, but since I had no memory of my past, I didn't know my last name, or even if I had a middle name. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my mate raise his eyebrows in confusion. The elder cleared his throat and started again.
Do you, Lily of the Snow Moon Pack, accept this marriage and my blessing of it?
I do, I replied quietly.
And do you acknowledge and accept that henceforth you will no longer be a member of the Snow Moon Pack?
Yes, I replied a little more eagerly.
Then as an elder of the Werewolf Sitting Council, I hereby strip you of any ties to the Snow Moon Pack. Alpha Theo?
The elder gestured to my alpha, who stood up.
I accept,
he said. I felt a tearing through my chest and I gasped. Everyone in the hall save the elder and my groom gasped and clutched their chests along with me. Losing a pack member was painful for everyone, but I took the pain with a smile. Knowing I was officially no longer a member of this horrid pack, I felt an intense wave of freedom, not to be tied to them anymore. When everyone was quiet again, the elder turned to my mate.
Do you, Alpha 𝑳𝑰𝑺𝑻𝑬𝑵, accept Lily, former member of the Snow Moon Pack, as your wife and mate, and therefore Luna of the Blood Moon Pack?
My breathing hitched to a stop. Alpha? Varlos, as in the cold-blooded killer Alpha Varlos? I asked Aya. I guess so, but his wolf. I don't care about his wolf, Aya. I can't accept this. He's a murderer. I was shaking as the reality of my situation started to sink in. They were marrying me off to the cruelest, most vicious alpha on this side of the world. And to make matters worse, he was my mate. What kind of sick sense of humour did the moon goddess have? I hadn't suffered enough, so she thought she'd toss me to the merciless alpha.
I do.
I felt the mate bond intensify. I ground my teeth together and kept my eyes downcast, avoiding eye contact with Alpha Varlos.
Lily, former member of the Snow Moon Pack, do you accept Alpha 𝑳𝑰𝑺𝑻𝑬𝑵 of the Blood Moon Pack to be your husband and your mate, thereby accepting your title as his Luna?
I didn't. I didn't want to go with him. These were my options then? Stay here and be a slave and get beat, go with the murdering alpha, or go rogue and have nobody. Tears welled in my eyes at my situation. Please, don't reject him, Aya whimpered. Aya, we can't accept him. He's... I know, she cut me off. But you need to remember that you wouldn't be the only one losing a mate, she snapped. Closing my eyes, I sighed quietly. When I opened them, I looked into my alpha's eyes. He was staring at me with such anger, I actually took a step back. Please, whispered Aya.
Lily?
The elder stepped forward. I heard a snicker I'd known anywhere behind me. Now I know why Evelyn was so smug earlier. Taking a deep breath, I looked away from Alpha Varlos and down at my shoes. I do, I whispered. The mate bond intensified again with my words. I blinked away unshed tears as I sealed my fate. The elder stepped back, giving me a short look of something close to sympathy.
It is my great joy to pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss.
That won't be necessary. Alpha Varlos cut across him. He turned to me. Come. Dragging my feet, I turned to follow my new husband. Chapter 3. Lily POV. Alpha Dimitri Varlos strode down the platform, stopping briefly to shake my former alpha's hand. They exchanged no words, but it felt disrespectful to me, like a good doing business with you vibe. I wondered for the first time how much he had offered for me. It couldn't have been very much. as I was nothing but a lowly slave for the pack. More than likely, they were probably just glad to be rid of me. Keeping my eyes down and my feet shuffling forward, I felt bad for whoever they replaced me with in the future. A deep sigh interrupted my thoughts, and I glanced up to see my mate's annoyed face. "Can you move any faster? I'd like to get home sometime today if that's okay with you," he snapped. "Sorry," I mumbled. He rolled his eyes. "Your things are packed and already loaded in the car. Let's go." He reached for my arm, and I instinctively flinched back. It wasn't entirely his fault. I'd been beaten since the age of 5. Fast movements tended to cause me to react like that. Whether he knew of how I was treated here or not, though, he stopped reaching for me and dropped his hand to the side. Should I change first?" I asked him. "Why?" I blinked at him. "Am I supposed to show up to your pack in a wedding dress?" "Why does it matter?" It didn't really. I was stalling, not wanting to be in a close, personal space like a car with him. "Look, I come and got what I needed here. Now I'm going home. If you're not in the car in 2 minutes, you can walk to Blood Moon." With that, he turned and walked away from me. Wow, he's a real charmer. I know he's a bit rough around the edges, but his wolf is really nice. That's supposed to make me feel better. Yes. I turned to roll my eyes. Dutifully, I followed my husband out of the pack house to a waiting black SUV. He was already seated in the driver's seat, tapping his fingers impatiently on the steering wheel. I climbed in somewhat awkwardly, thanks to the skirt of my dress, and shut my door. Glancing in the back seat, I saw a single suitcase. That would be my thing, as sad as that was. Clicking my seatbelt into place, I stared out the windshield. We weren't moving. 2 minutes passed, then 3, and 5 minutes later, we were still parked in the drive of the pack house. I broke the silence. "Aren't we leaving?" I asked him. "Yes, as soon as these idiots get the rest of your stuff." I looked at him quizzically. "What?" He jabbed a thumb over his shoulder, indicating my suitcase. I actually laughed. "That is the rest of my stuff." Now it was his turn to look confused. "That is all you have?" "Yeah." "Where are the rest of your clothes?" "They're in there. I don't have much," I shrugged. "Much? You don't have anything," he barked. I shrugged again. He continued to look at me with an undecipherable expression before his expression hardened again. "Whatever," he grumbled. Finally, he started the car and put it in the drive. Leaning back in my seat, I stared out at the houses passing us by, giving way to more and more trees, until we left Snow Moon behind completely. Turning onto the highway, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I can't believe it. I know! We're actually out of Snow Moon. We don't ever have to go back, Lily. We're free! Aya whooped in my head. Free? Somehow this didn't feel like freedom. I'd gone from being a slave to a Luna in less than a day, to a man who might actually kill me as he'd done so many others. Even as a slave, I'd heard all the stories of Alpha 𝑳𝑰𝑗𝑚𝑚𝑚. He was feared near and far for his ability to kill. He'd wiped out entire packs. He had no mercy, no heart. He was actually known as the Heartless Alpha. And here I was, sitting in a car with him, accompanying him to his pack as his Luna and wife. It felt surreal. Should I speak to him? Try to make conversation? I floundered around in my head, searching for something to ask him that didn't involve his kill streak or how many people he had decapitated. Hours passed. It was dark outside now, the trees a dark blur as we sped past. Suddenly, it popped into my head and out of my mouth before I could stop it. "Why didn't you kiss me?" I blurted out. Alpha 𝑳𝑰𝑗𝑚𝑚 glanced at me, and then back to the road. Silence. "Alpha." I tried again. Nothing. I'd been so caught up in the shock before, I hadn't even minded that he didn't kiss me. But now, as my reality began to really set in, it seemed important to know why. Was I that repulsive? Why did this matter so much to me anyway? He was a cold-blooded murderer. I shouldn't even be thinking about kissing him. Stupid mate bond. However, it seemed my mouth was not connected to my brain as I whispered, "I'm your mate."
Enough, he snapped loudly. I flinched away from him, hurt. Stupid mate bond. I didn't speak a single word for the rest of the trip. My gaze travelled between the window and my shoes. I refused to look at him. An hour ago, he'd told me we'd crossed into his land. I'd simply nodded. Was I being disrespectful? Probably. But he wasn't chatting me up either way, so I didn't care. We're here. He pulled up to a huge 10-foot gate that looked to be made of iron. 2 guards were stationed on our side, and 2 more just beyond. All 4 men were huge, but nowhere close to their alpha. The closest guard gave a signal, and the gate swung open. Despite my qualms about the situation, I was impressed as we drove further towards the pack house. Most of the area was covered in trees, but I could spot houses in the dense forestry. Here and there, quaint cottages were dotted around, with cute balconies and porch swings, gardens, stone walk paths. I even spotted a few garden gnomes. Not at all what I had been imagining when I learned who my husband-to-be was. 15 minutes later, Alpha Varlos pulled up to what could only be the pack house. The driveway was a big semicircle of stone bricks, with a water fountain stationed in the middle. Cars were parked in a line along the edge, jeeps and SUVs. Taking a minute to admire the house itself, I was honestly awestruck. The pack house was ginormous, at least 5 stories tall and just as wide. Lush flower beds lined the front, giving way to a beautifully green front lawn. Vines crawled up between the windows, sprouting little buds. Morning glories, I thought. Lights were on in various windows of the house, casting a yellow glow. It felt homey. Are you going to sit there and stare all night? I'm tired, grumbled my mate. I shook my head, speedily opening my door and stepping out. I hadn't moved much over the course of the long car ride, and my legs were super stiff. I took a second to stretch them, while still admiring the house. Upon closer inspection, I noticed the whole place was constructed of deep redwood. I bet it looked even better in the daylight. Lily. It took me a minute for him to catch my attention. Nobody used my name. I'd always been called slave or mutt or other various derogatory terms. Yes, I'm coming. Just let me get my stuff. Don't bother. But I'll get you some new clothes tomorrow. You can throw that suitcase out and everything in it. He began to walk to the house, but stopped when I opened the back door of the SUV. He sighed loudly, clearly irritated. Opening the suitcase, I dug through the clothes that had been packed. Really, they were just rags. Until I found my objective. Closing the door, I clutched my necklace and joined him. What's that? He asked. It's a necklace. He raised an eyebrow. It's the only thing I have that's really mine. I don't remember who gave it to me, but I had it before I came to Snow Moon, so... Why was I explaining this? Okay. He turned on his heel, and I followed him, mentally rolling my eyes. He really was an arse. He didn't hold the door for me, which I expected. Glancing around as I followed him through the door, I was again awestruck by how big this place was. Paintings decorated the walls, but I'd have to inspect closer later. The floor was carpeted a deep purple, contrasting nicely with the wooden interior. Antique-looking furniture was placed vicariously along the walls. This way. This floor has the common room, the kitchen, game area, and a room we use for alpha meetings. It also has the dining room for meals. Second floor belongs to my gamma and his family. Third floor is for my beta and his family. The fourth floor is for us, and the 5th floor is the library. That was the most he'd said to me since we'd met. Wait, us? Us? I squeaked. Chapter 4. Lily POV. He stopped on the stairs and looked down at me. As if he wasn't tall enough, this was even more intimidating. Yes, us. You are my wife, and Luna of this pack. Don't worry. You have your own room. Before I could ask, he trotted up the stairs, me scrambling to keep up. I was feeling lightheaded and gasping for breath by the time we reached our floor. Years of being starved for long periods of time will do that to you, I guess. I shuffled down the hall, nearly running into the back of him when he stopped abruptly in front of a door. This is your room. My room is across the hall. He pointed to a door adjacent to mine. Clothes will arrive tomorrow for you. Without another word, he opened his door and stepped inside, closing it on my shocked face. Numbly, I opened my own door and stepped inside. I don't know why I expected it to be small. Old habits, I guess. It was huge. The floor was plush, soft grey carpet. A king-size bed was set against the wall, begging for a good night's sleep. Across from the bed was an old-fashioned fireplace, already lit, and filling the room with warmth and a soft glow. A neatly stacked pile of wood was placed to its side. White curtains were drawn across glass doors that looked to open to a balcony. I assumed the door to my right was a bathroom, and the double wooden doors led to a closet. Again, not what I had imagined. But then, we didn't imagine we'd have our own room, did we? Aya grumbled. No, but it's better than sleeping with him, right? Maybe. But what was the point of all this if we're not going to be together? I didn't have an answer to that. It did seem pointless. He acted as if a mate and Luna, let alone a wife, was the last thing he wanted. Maybe it's better this way? He is him, after all. I need to bond with my mate too, Lily. What if he doesn't let us? She whimpered. We live here, Aya. Sooner or later we'll meet his wolf. I guess. It wasn't the same thing. I knew. Aya needed to make her own bond with the Alpha's wolf. Play together, hunt together. The thought of her not being able to do those things made her extremely sad. He has a name, you know, she said. It feels weird calling him Dimitri, though. What if he doesn't like it? What if no one else calls him that? You're overthinking things. I don't think so. Yawning, I slipped off my shoes and made my way to the bed. A huge grin plastered my face as I lay down. I'd never slept in a real bed before. My sleeping arrangements at Snow Moon consisted of a couple of dirty mattresses, filled with holes on the floor. Comparatively, this was heaven. Having nothing else to sleep in, I arranged the skirts of my dress under the covers and fell asleep in minutes. I woke up to someone nudging my shoulder. It couldn't have been Evelyn. She would have just yanked me out of bed. As I became more conscious, memories of the previous day came rushing back, and I shot up so fast, whoever was sitting next to me yelped in surprise. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. A girl stood at the edge of the bed, hands raised as if in surrender. She had medium-length golden blonde hair, a pale, flawless complexion, and a body to die for. Her hourglass figure was the stuff of envy. What I noticed most were her eyes, though. They were a similar shade of that of my husband's. Perhaps a little darker. A little darker. I blinked at her and noticed she actually did look quite a lot like Dimitri. Who are you? I asked. She smiled softly at me, extending her hand. I'm Thara, Dimitri's sister. He sent me up here to have a look at you. I didn't mean to wake you so suddenly. I took her hand and shook once. Look at me? I'm a doctor at the Pack Hospital. Dimitri said you looked a little unhealthy. Do you mind if I examine you? Do I have a choice? She laughed. No, not really. You are the Luna after all. We need you in tip-top shape. Okay, go ahead. I'm going to need you to change first. Clothes arrived for you this morning. I put some shorts and a t-shirt in the bathroom for you. This morning? What time is it now? Just a little after 1. Well, shit. I'd slept well over 12 hours. I couldn't complain, though. I felt more rested than I had in years. I sat up and stretched, swinging my legs over the side of the bed and making my way to the bathroom. Shutting the door, I did my business while looking around. There was a stand-in shower with what looked like 3 different heads for the water and a separate white claw foot tub that I was definitely going to take advantage of later. The counter had one long sink with 2 faucets, a gigantic mirror, and was polished to shine. The floor was black tile, also exceptionally shiny, with floral-designed bath mats placed in front of the shower and tub. I stripped out of my dress and threw it in the wicker laundry basket near the door. Taking a breath, I looked at my reflection in the mirror and gasped. Holy fuck. No wonder Dimitri hadn't wanted to kiss me.
or touch me, or even be around me for that matter. Bright purple and black bruises patched my cheeks. Where Evelyn had slapped me, my lip was also busted. How had I not noticed that? My hair had fallen out of its twist while I slept, and was now a tangled mess. My gaze travelled lower and I winced. Bruises dotted my skin in varying sizes, from my shoulders down my torso, and my legs were no better. I could count my ribs, and my collarbone jutted out sickeningly against my pale flesh. I'd always had a large chest, regardless of my weight, but it looked odd and disfigured, in contrast to every other part of me. There was obviously no muscle on me. I was literally skin and bone. I was hideous. A quiet cry left my lips as I grabbed the clothes Thara had set for me and dressed quickly. Wiping my eyes, I opened the door and strode back into the room. Thara was arranging tools on the bed. A stethoscope, a blood pressure cuff, something that resembled a little hammer. "If you could sit on the edge of the bed, I'll take your vitals," she said. I sat dutifully as she wrapped the cuff around my arm and looked at her watch, counting. Her eyebrows furrowed slightly, and she jotted something in a little black notebook. Next, she listened to my breathing and tested my reflexes. Her expression became more and more concerned as she carried on with her exam. "Luna, can you lie on the bed, please?" she asked, while writing in her book. I did as she asked and placed my hands on my stomach. "You can call me Lily," I said. She glanced up and smiled. "Lily it is," setting her notebook aside. "I'm going to have to examine your middle. I need you to remove your shirt. It's not invasive, and it won't take long. I promise." Yeah, okay, sure. I sat up and removed my shirt, lying back again. Thara's eyes widened as she stared at me. A small gasp left her lips before she shook it off and went to work, poking and prodding with her fingers. She asked me if this and that area were tender, if it was sore. She gave me a hard look when I said no, so I relented a little and was honest. As she scribbled furiously in her little book, she asked me to turn onto my stomach. When I did, the sound of pen against paper stopped abruptly. My goodness! I squeezed my eyes shut in shame and embarrassment. I knew what my back looked like. When Alpha Theo was in a particularly violent mood, he would use a silver knife on me. Only ever on my back, though, as it was the easiest part of me to cover up. The skin was jagged with scars that would never fully heal. They ranged from below my shoulder blades down to the bottom of my spine all over. "What? How did you get these?" asked Thara. She ran her finger over a particularly deep scar. "Silver," I mumbled. "Silver what? A blade?" I nodded mutely. "Who did this to you? You couldn't have done this yourself." "Who?" she demanded. What was I supposed to say? I couldn't implicate Alpha Theo. I doubted Thara would believe me anyways. "Who?" Thara, more harshly. "A member of Snow Moon," I said. "Which member?" I shook my head. She let out an exasperated sigh. I sat up and threw my shirt on quickly. "All right. You don't have to tell me, but I'm telling you now that Dimitri is going to want to know." "Why? It's not like he cares anyways. Just another thing about me that's repulsive." "What on earth makes you think that?" she asked, wide-eyed. Chapter 5. Dimitri, POV. How are we for patrols on the eastern border? I was in my office with my beta and my gamma, Luke. I needed some sort of distraction this morning. I'd sent Thara to look over Lily, for obvious reasons. The girl was covered head to toe in bruises and cuts. I needed some sort of plan to get her healthy again. A strong Luna made a strong Alpha, and she wasn't strong at all. "We have enough for the east, but we could reinforce the south. Rogues have been targeting along there more frequently," said Ben. "All right, get Ned on it ASAP." Ned was my head warrior, and Ben's twin brother. Both had fought for the beta title, but Ben won fair and square. Luke came from a long line of gammas, so he was the obvious choice for the role. Ned was more than happy to take the lead as head warrior and train others into the best damn group of fighters this side of the country. "Will do, boss." Before either of them could say anything else, the door slammed open, and Thara marched in, breathing hard with a destructive expression on her face. "You and you Out. She pointed to Ben and Luke, who raised their eyebrows at me. I nodded, so they left looking confused. I turned my chair towards Thara. Well? I asked. Well, Dimitri, that girl is covered in marks, and her back, she gulped. What the fuck happened at that pack? Her back? What's wrong with her back? It's mutilated. She wouldn't tell me who did it, only that it was caused by Silver. It looks like someone cut her with a blade over and over and over. Thara sat heavily in one of the chairs, across from my desk, tossing her little black notebook at me. I started flipping through the pages. Goddess, Lily wasn't just unhealthy. She was malnourished, dehydrated, severely underweight. Bruises covering most of her body, signs of physical and mental abuse. I closed the book. What's the treatment? I asked, straight-faced. Food and water, lots of it, often. But small meals first. I doubt her stomach can handle a hearty meal. I couldn't understand why her wolf wasn't healing the minor injuries, like the bruises. But she's so weak, so that means her wolf is too. With good care and rest, her wolf should start to heal her again. But her back, it'll never heal properly. She shuddered. I nodded slowly. I'll have the cooks prepare something for her, at least 6 times a day for now. She thinks you're repulsed by her, Thara said suddenly. What? Exactly what I said. Dimitri, you're her mate and her husband. But more importantly, her mate, the bond between you two will also help her to heal. I rolled my eyes. I don't have time to wait hand and foot on her, Thara. She glared at me. Are you even going to complete the mate bond? I shrugged. Of course, when she's not so fragile. Physically or mentally? She demanded. Physically, obviously. So? What? If she's not ready to complete the bond, you're going to force her? I sighed. I'm not having this conversation with you again, Thara. You know, I know, Dimitri. I know that you don't give a shit about that girl upstairs. I know that you have this ridiculous notion that you didn't even have a mate. But here's what I know. I know that if you force Lily to complete the bond when she doesn't feel ready, she will never be the strong Luna you want her to be. She has been abused by someone or multiple someones, probably for a very long time. And I will find who is responsible, Thara, I growled. She took a deep breath. After a brief silence, she turned on her heel and left, slamming the door on her way out. I sighed heavily. I was being a dick, but she didn't understand. She never had. She was right about one thing. At 23 years old, I had given up a long time ago thinking I had a mate out there. I looked everywhere in this pack, looked at every unmated girl. I went to neighbouring packs and nothing. What are the chances I'd happen to find her at an alpha meeting that I hadn't even wanted to attend? Ben had basically dragged me to Snow Moon, the one pack we didn't really associate with because its alpha was beyond useless. I hadn't been there since I was a kid. With my father when he was an alpha. Alpha meetings were supposed to be about renewing allies, gaining new ones, and discussing potential threats. I hadn't even considered that I'd meet a girl with haunting green eyes and a wildflower citrusy scent who would turn out to be my mate. As soon as she entered the room, Ajax, my wolf, had gone absolutely wild. It had taken almost all of my self-control to rein him in and keep him from marking her right there in the middle of the hall. The same hall I'd married her in a week later, admittedly, seeing her walk down the aisle in her long white dress. The way the skirts flowed around her as she moved. She looked beautiful and awful. Red marks that would surely turn to bruises soon had covered her cheeks, and a thin line of blood was running from her busted lip. Already formed bruises had dotted her bare shoulders, and I assumed from that the volume of her gown was purposely made to hide the extent of her injuries and the state of her body. Now I know I had been right. But did I care about her? No. That may sound horrible, but mates, Lunas especially, were potentially disasters waiting to happen. They served to make one stronger. That was all. When an alpha lost his Luna, it was well known that he would never be the same. Most killed themselves just to escape the pain. When I had been younger, I'd idolized the idea of finding that one person, my other half, to love and love me back. But over the years, I learned that while a mate made you stronger, they could also be your downfall.
This is why I would complete the bond with Lily, but she would never be my mate, the way mates usually worked. There would be no intimacy, no real love. I didn't have time for love.
Alpha?
I raised my head to see Janine, standing in the doorway. Don't you dare. Ajax growled in my head. Occasionally, Janine and I would fuck. There were no feelings between us. She was simply really easy and a good stress relief, and I was pretty stressed right now. Shut up, I told Ajax, and beckoned Janine forward. She smiled and closed the door. The dress she was wearing left nothing to the imagination, but for some reason I wasn't aroused. I'm not doing this. We're not. We have a mate now. So? We haven't completed the bond. I don't care. I'm not going to let you hurt our mate by fucking this whore.
You're so tense, baby.
Janine had moved to stand behind me, moving her hands over my shoulders in what she classified as a massage. Really, it felt like talons digging into my skin. Her touch made me uncomfortable, edgy in a way it never had before. I'm not in the mood for foreplay, I grumbled. She stepped into the side, swiveling my chair to her face. In one quick motion, she had my pants unzipped and pulled down. Her tits were practically hanging out of her dress as she leant forward. I had the urge to look away.
That's fine. We can get straight to it. I'm always eager to please my alpha, she purred.
Had her voice always been that nasally? Goddess. It was annoying. Sure, I mumbled. Down went my boxers, and embarrassment coloured my expression. I wasn't hard at all. I mean, at all. Janine raised her eyebrows, clearly not expecting that. I didn't say a thing.
Are you not excited to see me, baby? She asked.
No, Ajax growled. I was silent.
Maybe this will get things going.
Standing up, she reached back, and I heard her zipper. The dress fell in a puddle around her feet and she smiled at me. Of course she wasn't wearing anything underneath. I looked back at her, dispassionately. I should be rock hard right now. She had a great body, but my wolf's adamant unwillingness to betray our mate wouldn't allow me to appreciate it. It's not just me. You don't want to do this any more than I do. Didn't I? I sat there, not saying a word, and Janine's smile faltered a bit. Little things I hadn't noticed before right now really bugged me about her. Her eyes were too close together and a boring dull shade of blue. Her hair was so fake blonde, I was surprised it was still intact from all the bleaching. Her lips were thin, and her nose was a little upturned. Her body, yes, attractive, but just average too. These little things should be insequential, but they weren't. I wasn't shallow per se, but in my head, I saw a pair of bright green eyes, and I heard Lily's laugh. Janine was just an easy lay that had run its course. Standing up, I fixed my clothes.
What are you?
Sorry, this isn't going to happen, and it's probably best that it doesn't ever again, I said. Her jaw dropped.
But, Dimitri.
Alpha. I am alpha to you. Now go. I walked over and opened the door, not even caring that if anyone walked past, they would see her naked. She huffed angrily and I rolled my eyes. Grabbing her clothes, she quickly slid into them and walked out. I slammed the door behind her. I hate you, I told Ajax. You would have hated yourself more. If he was right, I didn't acknowledge it.